Hi, everybody. This is a Work in Progress podcast. I'm Tubbs.
I'm Dale.
Rachel.
And today is the second episode of the Work in Progress podcast.
Episode 2.
So far, we got 2. Is what we're getting at. Today, we were spitballing ideas, and I think last week we liked Dale's idea of writing down 3 topics. So if you would like to suggest any topics, you can email us at artistwhip@gmail.com, I think maybe.
That sounds right.
Let me open that up. Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
So while Tubbs doing that. Crickets.
Yeah. Artistwhip, artistwhipp@gmail.com. For any ideas or anything you want us to talk about, or any questions you may have.
So, did you guys have anything interesting happen this week?
Nothing I could talk about.
Okay.
I'm sore from work.
Yeah.
What is this?
Oh, the email.
Oh, Tubbs is pulling stuff up
I had the email
on the
set.
iPad.
Is our email on the Instagrams?
It will be.
Okay.
I haven't even posted anything to it yet.
That was a douchey way to call you out, I thought. I don't know if we brought it up earlier. I wasn't trying to call you out on the podcast. But since I did, Dale's fault.
Okay. A funny thing that happened to me this week. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only person this happens to, but I always have this little life narrator in the back of my head, and I was driving back to the office, and I had the radio on, and there was talking and stuff. So I was like, in my head, I was like about to turn it off, and then another voice in the back of my head like narrated that situation, and he turned off the radio. And this time, it could have saved his life. And so I left it on for about 5 more minutes. I was like, that is ridiculous. I turned it off. Does that happen to you guys?
Just to see if the voice in your head was getting a final destination on you?
Yep. Am I just crazy, or does that happen to you guys too?
I know I do it sometimes. I don't know if I do it out of boredom, but I do know sometimes I'm like... when people hate people, I always try to talk to those people because to me it's always funny because even a shitty person gives you a shitty person may be horrible to work with, but they give you really good stories. Mm-hmm. So I think that the narration that I do consciously comes from, this is going to be a great story later, and I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to tell my friends, and they're going to laugh. So please keep being a dickbag.
I know yesterday I went to urgent care, and I'd been waiting a few hours, and I felt sorry for the only doctor that was there. Anyways, so I've been working on a lot of things, like especially things that annoy me or things that I'm not worrying about anymore. But it seemed like all those situations came in through the door and sat there, and it's just like I used to get annoyed by people who sit there and talk with speakerphone, like just talk on the phone, like just turn it off. So I had a guy doing that, and then I get annoyed with certain way people chew gum. So a lady walked in with doing the same thing that I get annoyed by, and I don't watch Ghost Adventures anymore. But that was on, like a marathon of Ghost Adventures, and then I had there's people that were complaining about their sickness and illness, like, oh, it's not going to get any better. And I'm like, well, change your mindset a little bit. It could get better. And so this is like all these situations just like came in and just sat there. And it was just like, well, this is interesting. Like, I think everybody's presented with that, but it just seemed more transparent to me at that moment. And I could feel myself start to get like aggravated, and I'm like, wait, no, I'm gonna work through this, and I did work through it, and now I feel like the things that used to annoy me are just kind of like whatever, like it, because just because somebody does something doesn't mean I deem it's the right way to do it. So it's just like, just let it be and live your own role and try not to dictate what other people are doing.
That's difficult.
It really is.
It is difficult.
You've taken on a mighty task.
Yes. And I feel strong.
I think I practice that the most when I'm driving, because I've gotten really upset at people that drive like shit. But I mean, everybody drives differently. And there's been times that excuse me. There's been times that I'm driving and I'll have the Well, I have the state of mind to be like, you know what? Maybe they're having a problem with their car. Maybe they're dealing with something else. And part of me also is like, they should get off the road if that's what's happening. But and today on the way here, I was fine. I forgot something. I turned around. I came back, and on my way back, it seems like everybody got in front of me, and I was really upset at this one particular Suzuki XL7. I had my hate recorder going, so I remember everything about this white car with the gray tire cover, and I was genuinely mad at the car. I don't know what their situation was, and as soon as I turned off to come over to Tecnicus Street Studios, everything kind of stopped. I mellowed out. I started driving. The road was empty, and I was like, you know what? They could have been going through something. But I thought it was funny because the whole time I was driving behind them, I was like, oh man, I'm glad there's no brush guard on my truck. They had their turn signal on. They weren't
very considerate because you could have been going 55. Through something.
Yeah, right.
I think
I have friends to go do stuff with.
You have friends?
I have a couple. It's not you two. I
Can we
have
meet
a couple of friends.
So let's talk about topics. So one of the topics ideas was nature and how it influences our creativity or our work or.
So what about you? How does it?
I think in the sense that it influences that. I don't know. I look at nature as like it's always changing. Like there's, whether you're going from different seasons, if you live outside of Yuma, there are different seasons, and you have winter, everything changes. It's just always changing. So I think that I can see that as like your artwork will change over time. It may not be the same type of style that you were doing maybe like 2 months ago or whatever, but you're always evolving or always changing, and just to go with it, learn to go with the flow. Because if you try to fight it, then just like Mother Nature, when you try to fight it, she's going to turn around and, this is how it goes. This is what we're doing. And so I think that's how I see it, like the same art progress. Just go with it and see what happens.
So as art changes, or as nature changes, your art changes?
Well, it could be like a reflection, like a mirror. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Dead spots.
Dead air.
Okay, you go from winter to spring, like the leaves change, whatever, and so if you're trying to work on a specific style, whatever, it's going to, you know what I'm trying to say? Because it's not really coming out how it is in my head.
I don't know.
Can we delete that?
No. As far as what I do, I don't really have a lot to do with nature, but I do know that people like wood. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants wood to look like what they imagine in their heads. They want it to look this shaped and this shaped, and if you make it the shape they want, they're like, well, I want it to look more natural. Well, it's not. It doesn't grow that way, lady. That's why I had to do what I had to do to make it look that way. And I know that, so for me, when it comes to nature, I'm just like, I can make it wood. Mm-hmm. And different. I'm not really an artist, though, so I don't. From that point of view, I mean, I know people like, I like when people like live edge stuff, because I've redone some stuff that's live edge. Mm-hmm. And
I don't know what that is.
It's where they leave the bark, but they'll, okay, so say like, this piece will have bark. Say that there's bark still attached to it when they cut in a slab.
This piece is a table. It's not a video podcast.
Sorry.
This table that you can't see is made of solid gold.
But what they'll do is they'll take away the bark and they'll just leave it as a live edge. I mean, it's just a term that they use because it's
you leave
more natural looking.
Natural edge or live edge, whatever. It's just they just take away the bark and you have the.
So now people listening learned something, and so did I.
But yeah, I've read up stuff like that, and people like that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of, as far as this kind of stuff I've worked on, I should say, because I don't really do anything. But the stuff I've worked on, people like to say like, well, I'd like to look more wood or more this,
organic.
More organic. Organic's a better word. Mm-hmm. If organic's the word, then I have nothing to do with nature. 'Cause I don't fuck with nature.
Huh. As far as nature and the way it, I guess if the question is how it influences my art, immediately, because as always, most of the stuff I create is some kind of monster or something creepy looking. I absolutely love deep sea documentaries and stuff about all the crazy fish down there and stuff, so I definitely see a lot of potential creatures and stuff to make out of watching those documentaries and everything. But also, as far as nature, like, I'm constantly, I wouldn't even say that I'm constantly looking for it. I see, like, if there's just a shadow from a leaf on the ground, if it's a certain shape, I can kind of see a face to it, and then I'll maybe take a picture of it and try to make a face out of it later or something. And it's just, there's always something around that really stands out to me, I guess, in nature, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think there's art all around us. If you want to look at nature, if you...
What?
That was funny.
Oh, yeah. You guys are laughing and I'm not, and I want to join.
I think there's
I started laughing because you started laughing because you look like a little kid just giggling over there. There's art all around us. It just depends. Like, I think if your perspective or your mindset at the time, you can actually look around and see art. But there is I do look at art for influence as well, for like the organic lines and to where it's not, there's a structure to it, but it's not. So I'd like to incorporate that more into the future design for like cutting boards or like anything else, like a bed frame that I want to make for myself. I kind of want to incorporate that aspect of it, because if you look at the Grand Canyon, there is a structure to it, but it's organic, but I just like the balance of it, the layers of the rocks, and so that's what I guess I look for, is
that's
just
cool.
balance in nature and then balance with my artwork.
You're shaking the table, I think.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool, because that shows the difference, like, between like the type of work and artwork that you do, what stands out to you personally, as opposed to what stands out to me and what stands out to Tubbs. So I think that's pretty cool. I like that variety of looks at it.
I think when you said there's art everywhere, there's like, I can't remember where I got this, where I heard this, so I'm stealing it from somebody, but there's a story of three guys driving through a city. One's horny, one's sleepy, and one's hungry. And they drive through the exact same city, and they're like, the driver, like, we could have stopped by the hotels. There's at least 6 hotels. The other 2 didn't really pay attention to the hotels. The horny guy drove through, he goes, yeah, but there were 3 or 4 strip clubs on one little strip. We could have gone there, stopped and gotten off.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And the other one was hungry. He's like, yeah, but there were at least 15 diners. Like, they each saw in the exact same strip of town something that mattered to them, where the other ones didn't notice.
Yeah.
So I think when you see art everywhere, it's because you want to see art everywhere. Because sometimes I see stuff, I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to make that. It'd be really cool to do something like that. I'd like to try that, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as far as art, like, I don't really see art everywhere. I see art in here. It's an art room, though, so it's kind of cheating. But that's why I kind of laughed when you said that, because there's art everywhere. And I guess, yeah, if you're looking for art, I mean, even I think when I was in Colorado not too long ago, and driving through some of the older parts of Colorado, I think it's Colorado Springs, there's a bunch of really old, well, not really old, but older houses. And the way they're set up, it's almost very cookie cutter, in their sizing. And if you look at it, it's a grid of all the houses are put together. But every house has something different structurally, and they might be the same kind of base, but they all have completely different structures to them, like different open porches, closed-in porches, Arizona-type room porches, all throughout. And I thought it was really cool that if you look down the street, the houses look all the same. But if you walk, like if you're driving or if you pay attention to the houses, none of them are exactly the same.
Right.
But
it kind of reminds me of what you're saying about what my statement about art is everywhere. It's kind of like conspiracy theorists. if you believe that there's conspiracies out there, then that's all you're gonna focus your mindset on. And like with metal, you work with metal. Like, do you see metal more often, like in structures and?
Well, actually, when we were at work last week, they were digging a hole by where we work, and the claws on the scoop.
Yeah.
You were saying, I bet you that steel would be pretty good to use, and the tips of them are hardened steel, and they're designed to be taken off and replaced so you can keep reusing them. Mm-hmm. They're hardened steel. I was like, yeah, you could definitely use that for that. Mm-hmm. Just little stuff like that. Like, hey, that's pretty good steel. Yeah. We could take some of that. So I guess, I may not see art everywhere, but I do see potential. Potential for stuff to put together, put together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Potential.
So, what's next?
Another topic was from your sister. And her
What?
Instagram.
From your sister. Her
Instagram is Wilted Intentions.
Yeah.
Go check her out. Freaking amazing artist. Hers was pulling inspiration from other artists and making it a new idea. Dale, go.
Wow. I don't even know where to start with that.
How did you do that process when you started sculpting? Did you see other artists and see what they're doing? And
yes, definitely. I mean, like I said, I'll probably say it 1,000 times, but I've always done monsters and stuff, so there's monster creators and stuff like Casey Love and Jordu Shell, who are amazing sculptors and painters. That watching and learning from their stuff, I've learned most of what I know I've learned from watching them and like the videos and stuff they make and stuff like that. But I think they definitely, seeing what they can do definitely inspired me to go farther with what I want to do and what I like to do.
Have you ever looked at a painting and said, that's a cool idea, but I want to do it like this?
Yes and no. I try not to do that and it's just a personal view of it. I don't see any problem with people doing that, and even if I did, it wouldn't matter. But I try not to do that. I allow myself to get inspired by it, but I don't want to take what they did and do it again because I wouldn't. I don't know. It's difficult. I wouldn't take what they did and do it again and then call it original, if that makes sense.
What was that documentary?
And that's just, like I said, that's just a personal opinion of my own artistic view, I guess.
Right. What was that documentary on Netflix that you told me about? That guy who.
Excuse me.
Who?
Oh yeah, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but that guy was a professional art forgery painter. I don't know. I guess
But he didn't call himself a forger, though, did he?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Did he? I can't.
Yeah, he made millions and millions of dollars off of faking paintings. Like the guy was insane because he could not only paint the pictures that were already painted, but he could also paint paintings in the styles of multiple different artists. So yeah, that's what it is. Rachel found it. It's called Beltracci, The Art of Forgery. That's a really awesome documentary. But he was so good that he got down to the
any style.
Yeah, like even the brush strokes of certain artists, like he learned how to do that just to make them that believable. So when art experts and stuff would view these forgeries that he did, they would be completely fooled. It was pretty amazing, but he ended up doing a lot of time in prison, so
He was good.
yeah.
Even down to the antiquing
Yeah.
of the canvas and everything, like
Yeah, a lot of the paintings that he did were actually considered like lost works from certain artists and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, not in a good way. Just that's really cool that he could do that.
I think he would be a good example of somebody that's inspired by other people, but
It definitely has a bunch of talent.
Yeah.
I'll say it would take time to learn how to do brushstroke for an artist.
Yeah, well, it was a natural talent for him. It was just natural. But no, I don't consider being inspired by seeing somebody's artwork and then trying to do your own version. I don't think that is forgery. I don't know. It's just a personal challenge to myself to try to always come up with something original, and it doesn't make me a better artist or anything than other people. It's just the way I do it, and that's probably why it takes me so long to do so many different things, is because I am constantly have artist block and stuff like that. But I have had a lot of people tell me that certain things in my art remind them of other things, so I could say that there's probably a subconscious inspiration and even subconscious copying of other artists' stuff. So,
But do you think that it also plays into like other aspects of your life, whether it's like your personality, or like how you have your house, or like you can look at something, or like comedy. You listen to a lot of comedy, Tubbs, and it's so. Do you think your humor has kind of evolved from the things that you watched people?
Oh yeah, the interactions I have with people, the way I mean, even the way we tell stories is based on how we hear stories from other people.
Yeah.
Communication's a pretty heavy subject to talk about, but that's a lot of what comedy. I mean, that's a lot of what it is, how to communicate to people. Because there's people that watch comedians that they would never think they would listen to, but they listen to because they're charismatic. They got a way of talking to people. But what was the question?
Let me bring it up again.
Okay.
Because
this is a good topic because it's really
props to your sister.
Yeah.
Pulling inspiration from other artists and making it a new idea. Like the podcast thing, like you were talking about.
The way I translated that might not even be what she meant.
Well, to me, what I do is I usually fix stuff that's already made. I might fix it in a different style with different fabric. I might do different stuff with the finish on the wood. Whenever I make something from scratch, I know cabinetry, construction, stuff like that. You do kind of have to follow a certain kind of guideline because of how structures work. So there are a ton of different ways to make a structure, and sometimes people like me and Rachel have talked a lot about
Sorry, Dale.
yeah, not you, Dale, just me and Rachel.
Is there another podcast going on?
There might be. I take what you make and then I cut you out of everything and then I replay it and people are like, oh, it's podcast. No, but really the Japanese and Asian style architecture, and I mean, it held up the test of time really well. It's still there, a lot of it. I mean, there's a ton of different ways to do stuff like that, but a lot of those people are like 15th generation architects. They do the technical stuff in school, yeah, but you learn that stuff from somebody. So as far as me copying people, I copy the hell out of people, and not necessarily in what they make, but a lot in their technique. Because how many different ways can you use a table saw? But traditionally, you use a table saw for this, and then you start making jigs, and you find out how to make jigs, and you can build off of knowing how to make a couple of jigs for a table saw. You can build off of knowing how to make a couple of jigs for a chop saw or a miter saw, band saws. You can do all that stuff. You can probably, I'm very original, you can probably figure out how to make that stuff on your own, but watching somebody else do stuff like that is really helpful because they show you something at an angle you wouldn't necessarily consider doing, and it makes really good sense. So a lot of the times whenever I learned to do something, when I started, I think the first thing I ever actually from scratch, well not from scratch, but redid from completely tore up to complete was a dresser. And the exact explanation I got from my wife, because she's like, oh, I'd like to do this, all you have to do is sand it and stain it. And in sanding it, I messed it up some places. It was a veneer finished dresser, so I messed it up in some places. I fixed it in a lot of places. But that was me not having looked anything up, just sanding it. And then I got a mouth sander, and then I found a bunch of different ways to instead of sanding, you can do this. Just take a top layer off of it, and you just saved yourself about 8 hours. with your arm sword, and then I got tools and did more stuff. But a lot of stuff, even with the tools I have, I try to look up, because there are people that have put out videos for everything now. You can look up and, hey, did you know you can use your saw like this, or you can use this way, or you can try this with this. So I mean, I would say for an end product, I do look at stuff that people make and say I'd like something like that. I don't necessarily like exactly what they make, but something in that wheelhouse. As far as the work itself, a lot of the techniques are other people's techniques that I'll take this from this maker or restorer, and this from this person. I'll talk to you about some of it, and I'll make something using a bunch of different pieces from different people's either jigs, ways to put stuff together, ways to cut stuff, ways to glue stuff, to get the result I want. So I don't know. I do pull inspiration from people for like end result stuff, but I don't want it to be like I wouldn't want to make this table again.
Yeah. I
would want to make this table brighter, bolded, something bigger. Not bigger necessarily, but something that stands out. That's not a regular table. I was pointing at a table that we're sitting around. Forgot it's not a video podcast. But as far as pulling inspiration from stuff, I mean, a lot of the stuff is just, hey, I need this.
What about your knife making?
The knife making?
Do you pull inspiration from other knife makers out there and figure out?
And that's kind of where I think there's a weird divide. Is again, for the techniques, yes, because there's a lot of techniques they have that are just proven techniques that work really well. For the end result, honestly, the reason I got a knife making is when I was younger, I remember I couldn't afford a bunch of knives I wanted, and as I got older, I could afford more knives. So I bought some of those knives, and I realized what I want's never gonna stop. I can satiate my need for stuff, but I thought I could make stuff that I wouldn't necessarily be able to see at the store. It's a different type of knife. And a bunch of different makers make a ton of different styles, but there's kind of a template. I mean, piece of metal, one edge, that's a knife. And there's a ton of different ways you can do that exact same thing. So to me, it's not necessarily that I draw inspiration from somebody. I might look and go, I want a knife that looks somewhat like this. I want a push dagger. A push dagger goes into your hand, and the knife part of the dagger part sticks out between your knuckles. That's a push dagger. That's the base, kind of the framework for it's the same. What you do to accent it or make it, or the steel you make it out of, the style it is, the style of knife it is, that's all you.
Right.
And there are some people that I have seen, like I can't make Damascus for crap. Like I said, I haven't finished one knife, but I can't make Damascus steel, but using different kinds of steel on the knife. Like some people really like, a lot of people use wood for the handles. And you gave me some wood from some of your stuff. But I'm also looking at a lot of people that don't use it. They use brass, or they use different kinds of steel. And it does look different, but it's also really cool. So I don't even thinking of that right now. I might do something like that, but I would do it in the way I like it because I think it's different.
Right.
And I think we talked about that. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but when we were talking about do stuff that you like, because if people like your style, they're gonna know that you make that style of stuff.
Right.
Excuse me. So long-winded, yes and no.
That podcast is over. Tubbs talked it all.
You took up all the time.
When you were talking, it reminded me of when I was working on the animal painting, and before that I was commissioned to do 2 portraits, and in college I avoided painting because color. I let myself get intimidated by those things. But after I got out of college and I moved to Yuma, when people found out I was an artist, like, oh, can you do this? Can you paint this? And I'm like, oh, shit. Well, I can figure it out. I'll figure it out. And so one of the paintings I did in Yuma, the first painting I did was actual commission piece was when the pub was here. Remember the pub downtown?
Yes.
So I was commissioned to do the faux exposed brick, like the old school, and then also painted the American flag. I believe that's still there, and then the POW flag. So that was a huge, kind of in my face, okay, let's figure out how to paint this. And then some years later, I was asked to make paint one of those portraits, and I had no clue how to paint faces or whatever. So I went on YouTube, and I found a bunch of videos of how people approach portrait painting or just painting in general. And so I had to find a style that worked for me. And so because of my perspective on things, I'm going to see things differently. So if you see things geometrically or whatever, then you're going to paint according to that. Or if you see it as just abstract or whatever, then you're going to paint according to that when you lay down the different layers. So I had to find a way that made sense to my perspective, to where there was not a lot of resistance to painting this thing. And so that was me pulling inspiration from another artist, was their style or their approach to painting it. And then I just kind of made it my own. I didn't do it like step by step as they did, but that's how I pulled inspiration, was just a technique. And growing up, when I was drawing, I would copy other artists or whatever, and because I like the realistic approach to drawing, because I figured, if I was going to draw something or paint something, then I want it to look like that, because then what's the point? But I get it now, like it's okay. I don't have to be so OCD about it. But that's just also a reflection of like how you evolve over time, and your art is going to evolve with that, with your perspective on life. So, yeah, that's how.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you guys have a topic?
What? You're supposed to have 3.
Quick,
come up with another one.
Oh.
Really? You're supposed to have 3.
Oh man.
You told me to have 3.
Okay.
I thought it was on the drive up here.
It's because you're cool like that.
Very
All right.
cool.
Okay, so here's the topic: coming up with stuff on the spot.
Okay. All right. So, what would be your dream? It's not quite a topic, but more of like a question. What would be your dream if you could meet an artist or a maker and work with them for a day? Who would it be?
To work with them for a day.
Yeah, you could try and time travel if you wanted to.
Oh.
Go back.
It would definitely be somebody that I'd want to learn from.
No.
But what?
No, just kidding.
What?
No, go ahead.
You said work with for a day. So when you say work with for a day, I'm thinking work alongside them, and I can't think of.
I can't think of
even
anything.
a sculptor, Michelangelo, Leonardo.
No, because I don't speak their language.
Oh, but what if you could?
What if we got you a Rosetta Stone?
That's my phone buzzing. Okay, sorry. We're back.
I don't know. The where we were at was if you can go back or if you can work for a day with any
Artist.
influence, I guess would be a better way to put it.
Artist.
Because
I would love to go back and have conversations with H.P. Lovecraft. I think that would be awesome. But
how does he influence you in your creativity?
He writes a lot of short stories, and I don't like reading long books. So I like reading his stuff. My sister got me a huge, thick, awesome book of. I'm guessing it says it's the complete works. So, but the way he writes is, in my opinion, and I haven't read from a lot of different authors, but the way he writes seemed like it was way ahead of his time, and he seemed like he definitely set most artists or most sci-fi and horror writers on the path they're on now. So I think that would be cool to go back and just pick his brain. Mm-hmm. But I don't know exactly how to put it. That way he inspires me artistically. I think it's just the way he writes this horror, mystery, sci-fi stuff is really cool.
Do you incorporate that into your sculptures?
I would like to. I think eventually I'd like to try to sculpt some of the monsters and stuff that he talked about in his stories and stuff like that. And like Dagon and Cthulhu. I've drawn Cthulhu so many times, just trying to come up with my own versions of it. So maybe there's another example of
pulling inspiration.
Yeah, pulling inspirations. Always, because Cthulhu wasn't my idea. It was H.P. Lovecraft, but I've always tried to draw my own versions of it. So maybe that's what my sister was trying to say. I think so. Sounds right. It makes me feel less pretentious answering the question anyway.
I feel better. Everything before that was going to erase.
Yeah.
Tubbs?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think, in no disrespect, because I was listening, but I was also trying to spitball in my head. I've been listening to a lot of Penn Jillette's podcast from Penn and Teller. I like him, but when you're reading his books and when you hear him talk, he makes stuff sound really easy. But the reason it's easy is because he's talking about magic, and he's saying, and I'm not a magician at all, but he's saying the difference between a magician and a person that can't do magic is a magician sat there and practiced one thing over and over and over and over again. So when they do it, it's seamless, it seems easy, but the reason it is what it is because they've practiced that one thing repeatedly. And hearing him talk, because he's a juggler, hearing him talk about stuff, just the dedication it takes to do just this one thing repeatedly. Not juggling 3 balls, just juggling 2 balls, and juggling perfectly enough that if you incorporate more balls, you've no issue. Stop laughing, Rachel. I can feel you laughing. But that's kind of that's. I don't know. I think I'd like to hang out with him. I don't even know what we talk about, honestly. Just somebody that's willing to dedicate right balls, but somebody that just dedicates that much time to one thing. And I mean, I think that's what we all try to do. Like I can do some stuff where I know just off the top of my head, if this were presented to me or somebody asked me to do this, I can do it without a problem. And there's stuff that you try to practice for, but that's why you make cutting boards. That's why you keep drawing. That's why we keep practicing certain things, is because we want to get to the point where it's just second nature to do something like that. And when you go to make something for somebody, like the last time we were talking, I think it was on the podcast, you were saying that you get to a point, you open yourself up to the universe or whatever you want to call it. I'm not being a dick, I just can't remember what you actually called it.
Or whatever you call it.
Hippies.
You people.
Yeah, you people call it. People from where you're from.
You categorize.
What?
You categorize.
Well, no. What I was trying to get to was the reason you can do that is because you have messed up cutting boards. You have gone through some trials and tribulations with cutting boards. You've glued them wrong. You've noticed that this doesn't work. So what would take you normally, let's say when you started 5 hours to figure out, okay, I'm going to do this. I messed this up. Crap, now I have to start from scratch again. The reason cutting boards translate the way they do today, I mean, I'm sure you're working on something this week. The reason that translates the way it does is because you've had time in gluing something, messing it up, getting it ready for the customer. It's not there, you have to start. So I think I'd talk to him, one, because he sounds awesome, but two, because somebody that's willing to do that, like just, excuse, I don't know what's wrong with my throat today, but just dead, like nose to the grindstone, do the exact same thing over and over and over again to get to the point to where you want to do something and it just comes naturally. I think it'd really be a goal, because I'm trying to learn knife making really, but blacksmithing is just a smaller portion of it, because blacksmithing is its own whole gargantuan thing. And when you're watching some of the blacksmiths, they do it, and some of the guys look like they're they're 23 or 24. But their dad had a forge, so they started forging when they were 13 or 14. So a lot of the stuff that I'm messing up today, they'd already messed up at 12, 13, 14. And it's just little mistakes that they make that they know, don't do this because you're going to mess this up. Don't do this because you're going to mess this up. If this mistake is here, that's fine. We can fix it this way.
Yeah.
And I mean,
the metal can only do so much.
People always, and that's why now, I've talked to you guys about what people charge for their work. Well, that costs a lot of money, and I've seen people. Somebody actually this weekend showed me a Damascus steel knife, and it was a folding knife that was $60. I'm like, how the hell did they get away making that? The work that went into it, if they made it by hand, has got to be well over 3 or 4 days, and they sold one knife for $60. Like that's bananas.
Unless they bought it pre-made, right?
Yeah, unless they bought it pre-made, but it didn't look like it was pre-made. It looked like it was hand ground all around. So when I see somebody that does something like that with the whole, like, why do they charge this much? Well, you're paying for a cutting board. All they're paying for is a cutting board. all they're going to receive is a cutting board. But really what they're paying for is, this is what you want this in this time frame, and this is what you want it to look like. Experience has got, anybody can make a cutting board. Not a lot of people can make a nice cutting board. And the reason that is because they haven't gone through the simple steps of messing up, or learning from mistakes, or just simply techniques they've picked up along the way, like Brewer. What's his?
Tattoos by Brewer.
Yeah, Tattoos by Brewer. I was asking him, he said anybody could paint, anybody could draw. It's just wanting to sit down and fix the mistake you made last time over again. And then over again, and then over again, until you get it to where it looks like you want it to look like. And even when you get it to that point, it's still not going to be right. He said that's what it is. And I think that's what's really cool about artists, is that, and I'm not anti-artist, I mean some of my friends are artists, but when people like nail a dog to a wall and call it art, I don't care for that. That's like the social art, like we did this, and cool, did you though?
Yeah.
Just because I don't understand it. It's not because it's not art. I don't understand it personally. But when I see something that you make, or your view on something that you drew, or something you put together, I mean, something as simple as the sign, or we sketched on the table that we have in here, something as simple as that comes from experience of knowing what you want it to look like at the end. And I think the reason I say Pendula is because he has done that with so many things. And he will go the hardest route to do something, because what's important to him is getting what he wanted to do done. And not a lot of people have that kind of ambition or drive. So that's why I picked that person. He's not necessarily an artist. He's not a maker. He's an inventor. I mean, they have invented stuff, but
he is creative.
That's one of the things that I think is really cool, because a lot of the art thing is the time. Like comedians, we talked about earlier, it's a huge thing. Comedians. There's comedians like, oh, they came out of nowhere. No, they were working open mics for 5-6 years before you ever even heard of them.
Yeah.
Well, they came up out of nowhere. No, they've been doing it for a really long time. You just now heard about them. I mean, that's the way it is with artists. Artists do something a lot. I mean, the way you drew in junior high is not the way you draw today.
Right.
And that's because I like this better. I want it to look more like this. I want to follow this kind of style more. So to summarize, I think I would want to spend a day with Pendula. I would also take a picture with him.
So
you would do that?
What about you, Rachel?
Naked picture?
I've heard of him doing that.
Fuck yeah, I would do that in a minute.
I've always been. I've always liked the works of Michelangelo. I've just seen his stuff, and I'm just amazed. Because he has a different, I don't know, style or approach or whatever. When I went to Italy, I got to go to Sistine Chapel, got to see all that, got to see his sculptures and stand in front of the David, which was amazing. But as far as like one specific person, I guess I don't have one specifically. I think it's more of like a time, more of like when art was.
No, you don't get to do that. You can just pick one fucking person.
It was my question, so my rules.
You can't just change rules halfway through.
So for me, it'd be a time when art was just all over the place. Artists were celebrated, and just I would just like to not necessarily like participate in, but just observe to see what that when makers and artists that were just I guess in a way celebrated or appreciated. Not to say that they're not appreciated now, but
nobody likes me now. It was greater back then.
But just to see that balance between people who create and people who don't, because it was you needed each other at that time to, because there weren't machines back then. Everything was handcrafted.
Because I mean, today you go, I want a couch made, or I want this dresser made. It'll get made in a week and a half. Back then, like, well, let's go find some trees, guys. So Rachel has no answer because she said one person. No answer from Rachel. This is where we're at.
My game.
So pick one person you would spend a day with. Oh, I picked this person. You know what? I got this person for these reasons. I picked this era of people. Well, that's fucking cheating.
Peoples. I picked peoples.
Peoples.
How's that? energy. Since I'm a big energy person, that's what I pick.
Energy? You can't spend a day with energy. Actually, I guess you can.
Yeah, good.
If you work for the power company.
Well,
So,
yeah.
I think that concludes episode 2. I enjoyed these talkings.
Yes.
I think it could have been better, mostly on the Rachel picking one person front.
After we stop recording, we'll solve that problem.
Yeah. We'll put it on Instagram.
No, Rachel, you did good. We got good
thanks,
topics.
guys. Thanks.
But
Dale thinks you did good.
Next episode, Tubbs, you are up on the board. So
I am copy.
make sure they're good.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And make sure they're easy questions for me to answer so I can talk more.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I will do that.
Well, all right. So that concludes it. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Party hard.